Hey, welcome back to the Secret Underground Lair. We're continuing with our little Julia table. And today we're going to be taking some of this rough elm barn board that we have on hand. I've taken a couple pieces and planed down one side of it, or actually two sides of it, to get some interesting character wood. So we're going to cut this into strips, plane this one down, glue the strips together. Our goal is to make legs. At least get the legs kind of roughed into shape. There's going to be 3 legs on this table, and they're going to be embedded into the table, so they won't be sitting on the side like that, but they'll come up right through the table, join up to the top on the underside. You won't see the legs from the top, but you may see them on the side. So they're going to come up through here and join there. So there'll be a leg obviously on this end of the table, a leg on that end of the table, and there's going to be one right through the middle on the front. So, on with the legs. So the first step in this process is getting a clean edge. So I'm going to make my first cut to get a clean edge. Then I'm going to set the saw up to be 1 5/8. I'm getting want to get the final dimension down to 1.5. But I'm going to cut pieces 1 5/8. I should get enough for 2 legs out of this piece. Glue those together. Glue 2 of them together so I have 2 legs out of it. And then we'll take on the larger piece that I currently have on the work table. I'm going to use the sled to cut this piece off and get a straight edge. Got this big bite taken out of it down here, so I want to get rid of this. I want to get rid of that bite, so that's about 1 5/8. So I'll put it on the sled, that orientation, take off this edge. That'll give me a nice clean start. Then I can cut 2 strips, 1 5/8 inch, just using the flat of the saw. Be back when I have the sled set up. Okay, the sled is set up. We're going to run this through and just cut off a piece here. So the pieces off this, the strips that I've cut off this piece of wood obviously are not planed down, so I'm going to run these through the jointer. Although, looking down these pieces, I think I might just run them through the table saw here and get them a little straighter. So I'll use the saw to get these ready for glue. So these pieces have a slight twist in them. You can see there's a gap here and a gap here, and it's up tight. So I'm using my bed rail technique, slightly modified. I'm putting the flat edge of the bed rail up against this. The screw goes through about halfway into this piece. And then I get this straight edge that goes up against the fence. So that way when I run this through the table saw, I will be taking a little bit off here, a little bit less as I get to the middle, and a little bit more down here. So I'll get that nice straight edge. Again, just using bed rail. So, could I do this on a jointer? Yes. Do I have a jointer? No, I got rid of it a couple years ago when I decided that I don't use that jointer very much, and it's just taking up a lot of room in the shop. So, yeah, hindsight 2020, right? Just kind of eyeballing this, and we'll get our first cut. So that's given me a nice straight edge. Now I'll flip it over, run it through the other way, and get rid of the bow out of this edge. Okay, you got 3 pieces kind of suitable for gluing. Not convinced that this is, oh no. It's, this is something else. But I think I might still use it anyway. The coloring is pretty close to what we have on the top of the table. This does look an awful lot like pine. A little heavier than pine. It's not elm. I may change my mind on this, on these legs, but right now I'm going to get these glued up and clamped up. Then we'll start thinking about the next phase of making legs, final shaping of them. So, glue and clamps. Okay, so there's our 3 legs glued up. So I'm going to give the glue a chance to dry. And then we'll come back and we'll do some shaping on the legs. And for that I have something I think a little special. So I'll come back in a little bit when that's ready. Okay, got our legs have set. So we'll see what we've got here. Fantastic. They're good. Our next step here will be to trim these up, get them nice and square. I want them all the same dimension. And then we're going to take them over to the Bedrail Router Lathe and make some rounds out of them. But first, let's get them square. Certainly we're going to have a square portion at the top and then round for the rest. So first things first, let's make them square. So I'll set up the table saw, come back when I'm ready for that. All right, got the saw set up. I actually made one pass on this piece to get a square side or a flat side, so I'm going to run this one through. Then we'll flip them over, get nice even sides all the way around. So start with this guy. Next thing I want to do is just get some nice square ends on both of these pieces so that they can be mounted on the Bedrail Router Lathe. So I'll just square those up. Okay, so we got a couple pieces squared and roughly the same length. I'm not terribly worried about the length at this point because my primary focus is going to be getting a square end at one side, and we'll round it off the entire rest of the way and cut the length off the rounded end. It is the top portion that I want to be kind of critical or concerned about, because that's the portion that's going to come through the top of the table. So here's the game plan for this tabletop, or the table legs rather. So the top has 2 pieces, as you can see, kind of a top and an underside. the leg is going to come up through and meet up against the bottom of the top surface. And then coming down here, I'm looking to have a square stock from here to the underside, and then I want to do a gradual round over to get into round at this point. So I'm going to keep it square for a 1/2 inch below this that will eventually become a round over. So when I go over to the lathe, I'm going to make sure that I allow this distance from here, top to underside, is 5 inches. So I'm going to make sure that I go from here to here 5 inches, and that gives me a 1/2 inch to do a round over before it meets the bottom of this bottom surface of the table. So 5 inches here, and then the rest is round. 5 inches will remain square, the rest will become round. All right, I got our piece mounted up here in the Bedrail Router Lathe. And you can see there's our 5 inch mark that I don't want to go beyond. And I have swapped out on the router bit from the flat bottom bit that I had. I've moved to a round bit. And that'll give me the round over that I want right at that 5 inch mark. So I think that'll be good. We'll see how this works. The other thing I've done is I have put a little stop, fundamentally just a small C-clamp, so the router can't go any farther than that on the sled. And I have also set up a clamp to make a stop so that the router won't wind up smacking into this piece. I also have a little bit of clearance down here at this end, so when I get down to this stop, this is where I can lower the router just a little bit at a time. So our first pass, you can see that we have a little bit of clearance there. So I'm going to drop the router down just a little bit, and we'll take that much off the edge. So I'll set the camera up and we'll get going on this piece. So that round we just took a little bit off, just a tiny bit off every corner, which is good. Happy with that. Drop the bit down and we'll go a little bit deeper. This round over bit certainly has a different feel to it than the flat bottom bit. Maybe it's just because that flat bottom bit is so much sharper, but we'll go again. I can see I'm going to have a bit of a problem here too, in that I don't think I'm going to have enough depth of cut with this bit. So I might have to make some adjustments to the router lathe, but we'll cross that bridge in a little bit. Okay, let's go again. Okay, I'm making the cut as I had hoped. It's probably, that pass probably went a little bit, started out moving the router a little too fast. I'm going to speed up the drill so that the piece will spin a little faster and we'll go down a little bit farther. So a couple things to observe here. Spinning the piece a little faster seems to help in some respects, but doesn't help in others. I'm going to go back to spinning a little bit slower, yeah, we'll just carry on. All right, not a bad cut. I'm going to go down just a little bit. I think going slower helps to some degree. I think too that using this round over bit may not be the right bit to do all of the roughing. It certainly is doing exactly what I want up here. I'll call it at the throat where the square meets the round. It's doing exactly what I want. So I think perhaps the ticket would be to use a flat bottom bit for most of the roughing and then just finish up with the roundover bit up here. But I've gone this far. I'm going to continue. Just going to make another shallow cut. I think perhaps I'm making cuts that are a little deep. The router is prone to run away if I'm not careful with it. I think part of that has to do with the direction of the cut. So it might be worthwhile try spinning the piece in the reverse direction. So I'm going to do that on this next cut. First I'll lower the blade a little bit and lower the bit. I don't have much to go in terms of clearance here. So one of the things that's happening is the drive is coming off the nut here. So I'm going to have to come up with a better way to affix the drill to the spindle. But I'll carry on, finish off this cut. Okay, that has given us the exactly the leg I'm looking for. So there's our nice round over at the throat. Obviously we've got to do some sanding on this piece, but yeah, that has given me a nice round leg all the way down. And run some sandpaper over that and see how that cleans it up. Be back in a minute. So here's looking down that down the leg now after a quick run through with some 80 grit. I'm pleased with this result. I think this is going to look this is going to come out okay. Of course, the piece does have some imperfections, and this is what I'm going to call a test leg too, because I want to. This just being some pine, it might be Doug Fir as I work with it. It's heavier than typical pine, a little harder than typical pine. So I'm thinking what I have here is a piece of Doug Fir. Anyway, I'm very happy with the result of this. This was a great test. I'm going to stop by my friendly neighborhood surplus store and see if I can pick up another roundover bit. The technique I think though to use is to use the flat bit. That cuts so much better, I think, for doing this roughing stuff. At least that was the experience from our last cut. So we'll pick up. It's about time for lunch, so I'm going to have some lunch and we'll pick up after that. I have some errands to run and we'll come back and finish this a little later. So I just want to bring you up to date. I did one more leg and I changed the tactic on what I was doing here. I mentioned previously that I was going to swap out for a flat bottom bit and then just finish up with the roundover bit. That works phenomenally better, much better. So I have put our piece of elm in here now, made the first pass. I'll make another pass, bring you along for the ride, and you'll see how much faster I can go. It just cuts so much better. So here we go. So you could just see how much faster that's going. And it does a real nice job too. So I'll finish up this piece. I'm going to do one more pass just to kind of get to the final depth. And then I'm going to put in my roundover bit finished off and sand it. And I'll bring you back to show you the finished product. And there's our finished piece. This is the elm. A couple little quirky marks in it. But overall, that came out very, very nicely. I'll be trimming off that end a little bit, but overall, I am pleased. There's all 3 legs. So our next video, we'll look at attaching these legs or getting all the mount points put in place. There's still some work to be done, but next focus is mounting this on the top and bottom, or the top parts of the table. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.